Sheriff's Office, and how do you plan to address them? You got 1 minute.
Continue to doing the things we've done for the last 12 years. Continue to work hard, continue to be there for the people, increase patrols, increase deputies, increase our drug task force, and continue to spend the people's money wisely. Continue to do a good job at collecting the taxes, because if we don't do that, then we're not going to have schools, we're not going to have roads, law enforcement, or anything else. So those are my priorities, to continue mainly to protect you and protect your children. That is the main job of the sheriff, and we're going to continue to do that.
Mr. Smith, same question. What are your top priorities for the Washington Parish Sheriff's Office, and how do you plan to address them?
That's a good question. The main priority is to get back to public safety and not personal promotion. We've got 4 big issues that we need to address across the parish. The first is the security situation in Bogalusa. I think everyone can agree that that's a dire situation. It's only getting worse without attention from the Sheriff's Department. We've got a 911 dispatch center consolidated in the center of the parish that we're currently not using. That's going to be addressed. We've got an overcrowded jail that's going to get addressed. And we've got a philosophy of professionalism within the Sheriff's Department that we're going to address from the very beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, this next question will go to you first. What do you feel would be the greatest challenge in assuming the role of Washington Parish Sheriff?
That's another good question. The biggest challenge is just changing the culture. You know, people are resistant to change. I know they view me as an outsider in a lot of respects, but I've done this before. I've taken over organizations before where people are, used to doing things a certain way. It's really not because they're against me as much as they don't know what's possible. My experience in leading large organizations at the executive position is that I've been able to change things and get guys to buy in, and that's really what it's going to be. How long that's going to take, I'm not entirely sure. I think people are going to see a very quick improvement in a very short amount of time, but the biggest change is just changing people's minds. The biggest hurdle is just changing people's minds.
Thank you. Mr. Seal, same question. What do you feel would be the greatest challenge in assuming the role of Washington Parish Sheriff?
Look, when I became the sheriff 12 years ago, I felt like we had to change the culture. I felt like that if the sheriff worked hard, that the employees would work hard. I felt like if the sheriff wore a pink shirt, sometimes the employees are going to do the same thing. They're going to emulate the boss. And that's what we've done, and we brought about change, that our people are working hard, and they're going to continue to work hard. When I was the assessor, I worked to 4 o'clock on June the 30th, and I left there that day. As a sheriff, I'm going to work just as hard these next 4 years as I've worked for you the last 12 years, and I'll work up till the bell rings.
Thank you. Mr. Seal, next question. Would you be in favor of resuming visitation for the Washington Parish Jail as a means to promote transparency?
You're talking about through the inmates?
Yes.
Yeah. Listen, COVID changed a lot of things, and COVID has changed a lot of things in our sheriff's office. And we shut down visitation because we were trying to keep our inmates safe. I have no problem with going back to visitation as we have done in the past. But yes, I would love to let our people go see their loved ones, and I have no problem with that, and we'll continue to work. My warden's here, and if we can make it happen, which we can, we will.
Mr. Smith, same question. Would you be in favor of resuming visitation for the Washington Parish Jail as a means to promote transparency?
Without a question, yes. I mean, the hysteria around COVID ended a long time ago. It's going to be almost 4 years now since COVID started. Why we haven't done it yet, I'm unsure. But yes.
Mr. Smith, next question. would you work to encourage the district attorney's office to expedite some of these cases to help eliminate the overcrowding in our jail?
Yeah, without a question. I think one of my frustrations with the jail is not that it's crowded, it's that we don't seem to have any ambition to figure out why it's crowded. You know, we're given a false choice between locking everybody up or letting everybody out, when the reality is that there's other people involved in this process. The DA is probably the biggest one, but there's not a district attorney in the country that's gonna get reelected on the platform of letting criminals go. So there's a reason why there's cases backing up. We share a judicial district with St. Tammany, so we don't have as many court dates. All that means is that we've got to have everything ready to go when we have our opportunity to get these cases in front of a judge. The district attorney is integral to that process. I think there's probably a position within the sheriff's office for somebody to work with the DA to figure out, is it a problem with screening? Is it a problem with reports? Is it a problem with witness statements, evidence collection? You know, I don't know what the problem is, but we're gonna work with the DA hand in hand to figure out what that problem is so we can get it solved.
Mr. Seals, would you work to encourage the district attorney's office to expedite some of these cases to help eliminate the overcrowding in our jail?
We're already working with the district attorney, we're working with the judges, and let me tell you this, he doesn't know because he hasn't been the sheriff. You have to stay in your own lane. And the sheriff stays in his lane, the DA stays in his lane, and the judges stay in their lane. How would you like for the DA and the judge and the DA and the sheriff all be together? The criminals wouldn't have any chance at all. So we have to do our job, arrest them and put them in jail. The DA does their job to bring them to court and to have them convicted. And then the judge's job is to sentence them to jail and put them in jail where they belong.
Thank you. Mr. Seal, next question. What are your plans to help reduce the ever-increasing gang population and violence in our parish, specifically Bogalusa? What actions can the sheriff take to assist the Bogalusa Police Department with crime in Bogalusa?
No disrespect, but that question sounds like we're doing nothing down there. And that's not so. We're working in Bogalusa. We make arrests every day that we're down there. I see Kyle Stogner here, and he knows that. He knows that we're working hard. We just cleared up 50 people we have put in jail. That's one reason why we had to put inmates in Plaquemine Parish, because we broke up the largest cocaine ring in Washington Parish around. A lot of those people are looking at life sentences. So we're out there working, and we're working every day. And let me tell you this, if we weren't working, it would be a lot worse than what it is.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, I want to go back to you a minute ago on the question about working with the overcrowding in the jail. Did you have a rebuttal? You have 30 seconds. I didn't ask you that. I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to say on it.
A rebuttal for what?
Mr. Seal's comment on the overcrowding, eliminating the overcrowding in the jail. We just wanted to make sure that both of you remember that you have an opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal after both of you have answered your question.
Oh, no, I'll just rebut this if it's okay.
All right, well, we'll get on. Go ahead.
Your question was about gang activity in Bogalusa and what are we doing about it?
What actions can the sheriff take to assist the Bogalusa Police Department with crime in Bogalusa?
Yeah, so by the sheriff's own admission, what we're doing is not working, because if we're working, we're not getting the result. The only reason this question is being asked is because people are concerned about it. The sheriff has a huge ability to influence a lot of other organizations. It's got to be bigger than just making arrests. We've got to work with the coach. The parish president's talked about the lack of activity for kids to do. Kids want to be part of something bigger than themselves. Currently, the only thing that's offering that is gangs and gangs activity in Bogalusa. The sheriff is not directly responsible for that, but we have an ability to affect that beyond just the direct responsibility of the sheriff's office. We've got to work with the pastors in Bogalusa. We've got to work with teachers in Bogalusa, the school systems. We've got to work with coaches at the school systems in Bogalusa to get kids before they get into the gang activity. We're really talking about affecting the decision-making of 15 to 20-year-old young men that are causing the violence. But they're almost beyond help at that point. We've got to get them before they get up to that age, getting involved in the community in a lot of different organizations in a lot of different ways.
Thank you. Seal, 30 seconds.
Yeah, we're already working, helping the kids through ADAP. And we're in the schools and we're working with ADAP to teach our kids and try to encourage them to not do drugs. But let me tell you this. I'm not God. I can't fix all the social ills of this country. I wish I could. I'd be more than the sheriff of Washington Parish if I could do that. And if you think that you're gonna fix it, you'll find out that that's not gonna happen.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Smith, you're first. What experience do you have with budgets and how are you equipped to handle such large budgets?
Well, I'm equipped. I ran the largest recruiting station in the Marine Corps in New Jersey for 3 years. We had multi-million-dollar budgets. It's really about getting the right people in the right place. You know, the sheriff is not going to be the one going through the numbers, but the sheriff's got to have oversight of the people working the budgets. You know, the principles of a budget are the same whether you're working off of a budget of $20 or $20 million. So I'm very comfortable in that. I was very, very different roles throughout the Marine Corps. I was an instructor down in Bell Chase 323. So I'm very comfortable with budgets, the budgetary process. I've spent my entire adult life in government working with that process, so I'm very comfortable in that role.
Thank you. Mr. Seal, what experience do you have with budgets and how are you equipped to handle such large budgets?
It's easy to do a budget when the government prints their own money. But let me tell you this, when I became the sheriff of Washington Parish, we was completely bankrupt. We were in disarray. And I know a lot about budget because we're not in that condition right now. Whatever my legacy is, that's one of the legacies gonna be. That the sheriff brought this office into the 21st century. Ever since I've been in Washington Parish, the sheriff's office has always had to go borrow money July the 1st and had to pay it back on June the 30th and start the process all over again. We were determined not to do that, and we have done that. And let me say this, we've given pay raise, 30 to 40% pay raise since I've been there. I know something about budgets and bought new cars too.
Do I get a chance for about that?
Yes, sir, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, the sheriff's made a big deal about fixing the broken problem, but I think everybody knows that the sheriff is personally liable for any debts incurred by the office. And so the reality is that Bobby Crow, when he turned over his office to the sheriff, if it was such in disarray, then he should have been held personally liable. And he wasn't, so that's a bit of evidence that things weren't nearly as bad as the sheriff makes it out. The truth is that there was a loan taken out under Sheriff Jones during Katrina that was rolled over because in the language that was supposed to be forgiven, it had to do with areas being flooded. Since Washington Parish wasn't being flooded, that FEMA loan kept getting kicked down the road from Jones to Crow, and when it was finally resolved, Sheriff Seal was the guy in charge.
And I got it resolved because I knew the senators and the representatives in Washington, D.C., and I still know, I don't have a rebuttal for that?
No, sir.
Okay, sorry.
All right, Mr. Seal, the next question is to you first. How would you work to ensure people with mental illnesses are tended to?
Well, we're doing that now, but let me tell you, the sheriff's responsibility is to put people in jail. And there's some mental illness people in our jail. I can't move them. Number one, I'm not a doctor. Number two, we're waiting for the courts to have them moved, and they have to have an open bed before we can send them there to have them evaluated. We're following the law. Listen, the jail has a lot of rules, and we have to follow those rules. We all have bosses. And the sheriff is not this almighty all everything. Only God's that. And we have to follow the rules, and we are following the rules, and we keep them in our jail, because I'm not going to turn a mental patient out and let them hurt you or hurt your child. Never, as long as I'm sheriff.
Mr. Smith, how would you work to ensure people with mental illness are tended to?
Well, we have a patient that was declared mentally incompetent back in April. The court ordered the sheriff to remand him to the mental facility in Jackson, Louisiana, and he's still currently in the jail. So I'm not sure exactly what the sheriff's talking about with respect to following rules. But the problem is across the parish, and locking somebody up that's in the middle of a mental crisis is not making any situations any better. We've got to train deputies so that they can properly identify the symptoms, and then work with people across the parish, or work with the organizations that are going to work in complement with the law enforcement agencies to help people that are in mental health crisis. This is just like drugs. There's not a family in the parish that's not affected by drugs. There's also not a family in the parish that's not affected by mental health, and we can work together to make this a better place.
Do I have a rebuttal?
Yes, 30 seconds.
Well, I wish I could train all of my people to be psychiatrists or social workers. Your deputies, that's not their job. Their job is to serve and protect. And the reason why that inmate was not moved, and I just answered it, Jason, the reason why he wasn't moved is because we're still waiting for East Feliciana Parish, the mental place over there, to put him there. We have no control over that. And that's why he's still there.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, next question. What do you plan to accomplish in your first 30 days?
First 30 days are really going to be spent addressing people's job descriptions, working with the people that know what their roles are. I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of changes in 30 days. You know, it's going to be a lot of administrative things. We're going to start to get engaged with the new parish president about starting the process for a new jail. But people won't see a lot of changes in 30 days. You know, I've always, anytime I've taken over an organization, want to tread carefully. You know, you don't make any changes before you know what. Sorry about the phone.
Make sure mine wasn't on.
That's all right. No, you don't want to make any changes without knowing why things are in place anyway. Everybody working in the sheriff's department is there for a specific purpose, to define they're doing a job, and I've got to figure out what those jobs are before we start making any wholesale changes. Thanks.
Mr. Seal?
Thank you.
What do you plan to accomplish in your first 30 days?
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you saying we're doing a good job. We're going to continue to do what we've been doing. We're going to continue to be nice. We're going to continue to be friendly to people. We're going to continue to have an open door policy. And our people are going to continue to work and put criminals in jail where they belong, even if we have to give them a mattress and a pillow and a blanket and put them on the floor. I've always said, and I'm going to say it here to this crowd, we have a scriptural jail. There's always room for one more in the end. And we're not going to turn anybody loose because they have raped someone because we full to the capacity. You want to know if a sheriff is a hard worker? See if the jail's full. If the jail's full, we're working hard and we're doing our job.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Seal. What will you do to improve transparency from the sheriff's department?
I feel like we're already transparent. We have audits done every year. We pass those with flying colors. We spend the money that we have coming in. We don't spend more money than we have coming in. That's where the sheriffs in the past have got in trouble. And talking and going back about Bobby Crow leaving the office, or I said that Bobby Crow left it in disarray. He did. That's one of my qualities of being a good sheriff. I'm a compassionate person. I love people. And I was so happy to be sheriff, I was just glad to be there. And so we took it on and we got it out of debt, we got it out of trouble, and I'm proud of that so much.
Mr. Smith, what will you do to improve transparency from the sheriff's department?
If you go to other sheriff departments and their websites, you'll be able to find their budget. You'll be able to find multi-years of data, crime statistics. If you go to our sheriff's department's website, you won't find any crime statistics. You won't be able to access the budget. That's just the first step in transparency. We've got to give people the ability to research and to give them the information of where their taxpayer dollars are being spent, outside of just being told that we're doing a good job.
Thank Mr. Seal, 30 seconds.
I guess you just getting to Washington Parish 6 years ago, you don't know that the budget is published every year in the Air Leader newspaper. It's there, the money that we have coming in and what it's being spent for. So we are open to transparency, and we're gonna continue to operate our office in a fiscal manner, and we're not gonna ever spend more money than we have coming in. And any extra money we have, we give it to our people. The sheriff's salary,
Thank you, sir. All right, gentlemen, this will be the last question. Mr. Smith, you were first. What do you think is the number one thing that needs to change at the sheriff's department, and how would you change it?
That's a good question. I think the number one thing that needs to be changed is just the leadership. I mean, the morale within the department is at rock bottom. There's lots of different indicators that that's the case, and you can't improve morale without a change of leadership. You know, Randy's been in public service now for 30 years. It's just time. It's just time. It's time for a new perspective. It's time for some fresh energy. This is about looking forward into the next 4 years and who's got the perspective and the energy and the ability to make the changes that the people of the parish want. That's what it's all about.
Thank you. Mr. Seal, same question. What do you think is the number one thing that needs to change at the sheriff's department, and how would you change it?
well, number one thing is we need more money. But we're not going to get it by me asking the people for more taxes. So we need to have more money. I've often said this, and I'll say it again. If we had $1 million more a year, we would have probably the best rural-run sheriff's office in the state of Louisiana. So we need more money, but we're gonna continue to do what we're doing. We're gonna work hard. We're gonna be there for the people. We're not gonna embarrass you. I done got too old to embarrass you now. So we're just gonna continue to be the person that you know Country Seal, you know you can call me, you know you can trust me, and I appreciate you letting me serve you for the past 30 years, and I'm gonna continue to do it and not embarrass you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. All right, gentlemen, the next 4 questions are gonna be the ones out of the hot seat. These will be questions just directly for you. They will not be going with each other's questions. Mr. Seal, you were first. What steps will you take to enhance the training and professional development of deputies within the Washington Parish Sheriff's Office?
First of all, they're already being trained. We have to, when I became sheriff, you had to go to school for 12 weeks or 15 weeks. Now that's been increased to something like 18 weeks. So the state has very, very stringent qualifications that you have to complete, not only academically, but also physically. We have continuing education all the time. We just hired a man that is full-time working for our training. We also do training with the district attorney's office. So we go, look, I'm an old school teacher. I know all about going to school and being trained. And sheriff's office is the same way. We have to complete our training. We have to do our shooting. You have to pass that. And if you don't, then you can't carry a firearm and you can't be a deputy for Washington Parish Sheriff's Office. We're gonna continue doing good training.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I just want to remind you, you have 2 minutes for the hot seat question.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, you, what could be done to reduce the violence and drug trade in the Washington Parish Jail?
Supervision. I mean, that's really what it all comes down to. You've got to supervise the correctional officers that are there. I think you've got to do a lot of things about getting engaged. The problem with the jail currently is because it's so overcrowded, it's hard to supervise. You know, you've got correctional officers that are in a very unsafe situation, and people that are unsafe and stressed out don't do their jobs as well as people that are safe and not stressed out. So it's going to be a long-term situation or long-term solution to a problem. In the short term, I think we can get stuck in and be some engaged leadership in certain ways, but long-term, we're going to solve it by decreasing the stress that the correctional officers and the inmates are currently in.
Thank you. Mr. Seal, next question. What specific experience and qualifications do you possess that make you the most suitable candidate for the position of Washington Parish Sheriff?
As it was said in the first primary, and I'm gonna say it, I'm the only person sitting at this table that has experience of being a sheriff. The only person that is a good sheriff. And let me say this, I just received, and you'll be getting it in a mail out soon, I just received an endorsement from most all of the sheriffs in Louisiana. We got them all, except they weren't all at that meeting that day. But I also have an endorsement from the 4 sheriffs that joined Washington Parish in Mississippi. They all know that Country Seals is a hard worker. They all know that they can pick up a phone and call me, and I'll be there for them. Criminals don't know parish line or state line, but we work with the other agencies, and I'm proud of that. Not only did I get an endorsement from them, but I've also got an endorsement from Jeff Landry, the governor-elect. I also got an endorsement from the lady that's gonna be our Attorney General, Liz Merle, our Public Service Commission. I've got endorsements, and I know people from the State House in Baton Rouge to the White House or the Capitol House in Washington, D.C. Don't lose that, folks. You can't get that overnight. You gotta work to earn that. And let me tell you what the scripture said. To get a friend, you gotta show yourself friendly. And Country Seal is friendly. And I've made a lot of friends all over this country. And I want to continue to use that friendship to help you, the people of this parish.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, next question to you. Washington Parish has the highest overdose death rate in the state according to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention from 2015 to 2019. The CDC showed an average of 70 residents of Washington Parish, Louisiana, died from a drug overdose every year between 2015 and 2019. This is the highest overdose death rate in the state and the 12th highest of all 3,142 counties in the U.S. As sheriff, what would you do to curb drug overdose in Washington Parish?
Well, that's a good question. There's not a family in this parish that's not affected by drugs. I would like to see the sheriff take a larger role and use the platform to influence a lot of other organizations, because the sheriff, if we approach it only from a law enforcement perspective, you're gonna see exactly what we've seen. Things that don't work, things that get worse. If you're on drugs, your life is hard enough that me locking you in a cage is not gonna make it any easier. If you're on drugs, your family's life is even harder than me locking you in a cage is not gonna make it any easier. I'm more concerned about protecting the victims of crimes instead of protecting people from their poor lifestyle decisions. Every time we lock somebody up for using drugs, we take on the financial costs of their poor lifestyle. We don't need to do that. We need to research faith-based operations, faith-based rehab programs, whether it's Mel Jones in Orleans Parish or Magdalene House in Hancock County. There's nothing equivalent here in Washington Parish. The sheriff's not responsible for setting those things up, but we could probably work to set the conditions that those places come here, and we can actually add value to the community in that way.
Do I have a
No,
response to that?
no.
So, no time to respond to that, but you do have 1 minute for a closing statement. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for the Franklinton Women's Club for inviting us to be here tonight. I want to thank the Washington Parish Republican Party for a complete unanimous endorsement for me to continue as your sheriff. I appreciate that. I love this parish. I have worked hard. Not only have I been your assessor and your sheriff, but I've taught school in this parish. You let me have the most important thing in your life, which was your children. And I was able to teach them, and I've got students still come up to me and they tell me, how much they loved me and how much they enjoyed me being their teacher years ago. We're going to continue to work hard for you. I'm sorry that I can't solve the drug issue, but I promise you I know the one that can, and that's our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's the only person that can be able to change people's problems.
Mr. Smith, 1 minute final statement.
Final statement.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what I can say that hadn't already been said. We've been doing this now for just about 11 months, and one of the things I've really enjoyed is getting to meet people and getting to know people that I would not have gotten to meet or know in other ways. My wife and I, we've been invited to churches, we've been invited to homes, we talk to people, and the thing that I've really taken away is that people, one of my assumptions going into this was that we're on the verge of being able to change things in a positive way in Washington Parish. And the more people I speak to, they're looking for that same change. 2 out of 3 voters voted for change. I don't care about endorsements. Those endorsements can't vote here. They don't live in our reality. The people that are concerned, the voters of this parish, they know what's possible. They're looking forward to it. I'm excited to be your next sheriff. We need to get everybody out and vote. Thank you.